Hi, and welcome back to David Pattinson's Accused Friends out here on the patio. I wanted to talk again about Rishi and reclassifying him as a debt slave master. There's been very little coverage in the news since all the Black Lives Matter protests about how we as a country are totally against slavery. And yet we have a Chancellor of the Exchequer that sole focus every time he walks into the office is to consign future generations to more and more and more debt. This is what debt slave masters do. This is what Rishi is. So instead of calling him the Chancellor of the Exchequer, why don't we just be honest and call him a debt slave master for all the young people and all the young babies being born in Great Britain. He is consigning them to years and years of work to pay for benefits that they're not going to receive. The benefits or the benefactors of the lockdown are old people. They're not being asked to write checks, they're not being asked to sell their homes, to pay for all the bailouts of the country, but it is young people, it is unborn people that are going to have to pick up the tab. They're going to have to be the benefactors. And yet we don't talk about this. We don't talk about it enough. Why is it morally or legally permitted to pass the debts of one group of people onto another group of people without their consent? We're always talking about women, they have to consent to everything. What about young female babies being born today? Have they consented to having all this debt passed on to them? What about men? Do they not have a consent? Do they not have a voice? So I think it's totally outrageous what's going on with Rishi. Why he's not in a prison cell awaiting trial is beyond me. We started off this lockdown process, we had the furloughs, we had bailouts for big business, we had bailouts for small business, we had bailouts for self-employed. We then had the eat out to get out nonsense where everyone had to go out and eat out, and it was subsidized by Rishi. We had the NHS track and trace, which has cost billions, which is totally unnecessary. It violates citizens' rights of preventing unlawful searches and seizures by the government. It is government spying, and that's all now been paid for. We had Boris Johnson talking at the Conservative Party conference about all this wind farm crap. When I was a young person, our country was never aspiring to be like Saudi Arabia, but he says, we need to be like Saudi Arabia by 2030. We'll be just like Saudi Arabia because we're going to have all these wind farms. There's been, tax cuts on the stamp duty, and I'm all in favor of cutting taxes. But if we're increasing spending by 350 billion a year at the same time, it's adding more and more debt to our country. And the problem with debt is it has to be serviced, number one, and it has to be repaid. Number two, I think a lot of these bailouts for business and for people are bank bailouts by stealth, because any businesses that have bank loans, you can either bail out the banks to, compensate them for the business unable to pay their loans, or politically you can just recapitalize the businesses so they can continue to service their loans to the bank, so they can continue to perpetuate the corrupt financial system that we have. So I think we really need to look at Rishi very closely. I think he's a first-class criminal. I think his debt slavery is totally unjust and immoral. And I think if people just start calling him a debt slave master, I think more and more people will realize this. I mean, Rishi's out there claiming credit, political credit for all the bailouts. He's implying that it's with his money or the government's money, but the government have no money. Not only are they 2 trillion in debt, going to 4 trillion, but all their entire stream of income comes from British taxpayers. It comes through taxation. And of course, more and more people that are unemployed, the more and more people that are earning less, the tax base is going to decline. Meanwhile, Rishi's spending is totally out of control. And I've said many times, people said we couldn't have Jeremy Corbyn. I'm no fan of Jeremy Corbyn, but people said we couldn't have Jeremy Corbyn because we couldn't afford him. Whereas we've got Boris Johnson and Rishi, 2 debt slave masters, if you want to be honest about it. How can we afford them? They're spending 3.5 times more per year in new debt than Jeremy Corbyn ever promised. So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy going on within the government that we need to expose, that we need to talk about, and that we need to prosecute. If we prosecuted all this nonsense on day one, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. But if we prosecute it now, if we get rid of these people, we can then go back to a free society where the government is not consigning our young people and our unborn people to debts that they have not voted for, that they have not consented to, and that I doubt highly that they want. So I hope you like this video. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.